So you also have a celebration and anniversary. Big applause to those people here. They are here for the 10th time. That's great. Super. How time flies by, huh? 10 years, a decade of SIP. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We just heard it from Roberta. No, we won't. This is new. We have to add a comment from Monica Enzini, and you do it right now. She wants to add something in addition to her presentation. So don't forget it and start with it right away.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that regarding the consultation that it's open now for the strategic planning. Can we have so it's on if you go on the Commission website, on the Horizon Europe website, it should actually appear. You should get very familiar with the website. It contains all informations updated about what's happening of the program. And so I just wanted to point out that it's open now, specifically targeted to umbrella organizations. So this is indeed the target. You are the perfect target. The deadline is quite near, is the 17th of November. So there are still 10 days. We can change the word in 10 days. So please make sure to answer. Yeah, it should appear, possibly. No, it's just because then you see how it looks like. So there is the link to the document I mentioned to you, the 170 pages. Again, just go straight to the health cluster wording, and then there is the link to the online survey where there is text boxes where you can actually add your comments and your proposals. Yeah, maybe it's going to happen. Yes, there is a sort of. So your contribution is very welcome, of course, very welcome indeed. Here, wonderful. So share your views on the revised version of the orientations towards this first strategic plan for Horizon Europe. Again, there is the link to the online survey, but before doing the survey, actually entering the survey, you actually read the document. You go into the orientation towards the strategic plan. That's it. That's the baby. Open there. That's the baby. Orientation towards strategic plan. You download 170 pages. Don't worry. You go to health cluster, and then you comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. And I have to rearrange this a little bit so you can see the people. Now, we come to the next pillar of the SIP joint statement. Nearly 100, and we heard it from Roberta in her video statement, nearly 150 million of people suffer from chronic pain. Chronic pain is the #1 reason why people don't come to work and for the workplace absenteeism. And this is exactly what we are focusing now. And I would like to introduce you to my co-moderator and expert. She's Chief Executive of Arthritis Ireland, where she is leading the strategy of the charity to be one of the leading patient-centric health research charities in Ireland. Would you please welcome Gráinne O'Leary? Here she is. If you want a handheld, you can have a handheld.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, sure.
Okay. Gráinne, before we kick off the session, I have a question for you. And please pay attention. The next question is coming up in a second. How many people, it's a quiz question, I see that. How many people indicated that their chronic pain completely prevented them from work? Less than 10%, 20 to 30%, about 50%, or more than 60%? It's a group response. Find one answer, discuss it, and then you put it in, table by table. right. I think 2 or 3 votes are missing. Okay, then let's see what you voted for. You said 42%, and about 50 is the right answer. 23.8% of you gave this answer, so you get the points. And here's the next question. Another quiz question. Folks, how many people with chronic pain receive occupational rehabilitation in order to remain at work? 10, 20, 50, or 80%? All right, 2 tables are missing, 2 teams. Actually, yes. Okay, let's see. What's your opinion? All right. And the answer is 20%. 35, and here is 1 table. He got the right answer. Points for you. Let's see at the end who really accumulated the most number of points. For the next session, I would like to call on stage, I hope I pronounce it right, Joachim Britz, Saskia Djerkuman, Elsa Mateusz, and Sarah Kopsy. Please come on stage with your applause. One, two, three, four. All right, here you are. Good. Thank you. Gronja.
Okay. So I'm delighted to welcome our first speaker this afternoon, who's Joachim Britz from Portugal. Joachim is the president of the APN, which is the, I hope I pronounced this right as well, the Associação Portuguesa de Neuromusculares. And just a quote from Joachim before he speaks. He says that, much relevant information is still lacking in the context of employability. So let's hear more from Joachim.
The motivation to achieve results in the modern age is an additional need to that all productivity or health agents must feel in their daily actions, especially when it comes to the most vulnerable groups or whose ability to act is affected by any physical condition. In these cases, the motivation should be even greater. With this vision, and with the scientific study and statistical analysis made by the Portuguese Association for the Study of Pain in recent years, we have joined a group of Portuguese professionals related to health in general and the study of pain in particular. To enrich the group, we've looked for people affected by different physical conditions and who feel the full social impact of pain on their lives and professional careers. When we talk about these careers, we must talk about the various stages of life they go through until they reach professional inclusion. That's what we try to do together. Starting with the meetings which began in July 2018, we were held regularly to improve knowledge and clearly define the objectives foreseen in the 4 sectors already identified as fundamental. The CIP Portugal platform was born. Knowing that it was impossible to measure pain meticulously, we all knew that it was possible to measure its impact on the national economy through its main agents, among which is one of the key factors, employment. We also knew that covering all areas where chronic pain has a silent weight would be difficult. Therefore, SIP Portugal decided to focus its efforts on a joint declaration that made serious recommendations for the gradual abandonment of a plan based solely on the medical and curative model, introducing and discussing with some of the top employers, stimulating ideas, initiatives, and practices that might be considered best will lead us to a more social, less stigmatizing, and more inclusive model. The national health system is severely punished by the excessive costs of treatment, and the social system is also punished by the cost of social protection. Gradually, private insurers are being introduced with promises for better health coverage. However, when the region of the disease that causes the pain is revealed, or because it is chronic, they return the responsibility to the patient. It is therefore necessary to introduce some morality and willingness to include, to adapt, to accept another pains, and to understand it, among many other ways of increasing knowledge. Contributing careers interrupted by hard-to-overcome physical limitations should end more fairly, more inclusive, and more equitably. Considering all these factors, it will be possible to add new and more innovative concepts of management for companies and their human resources. Measures that protect employment will be necessary but not sufficient if we do not think about protecting people and their limitations. Technological means implemented in recent decades have served to increase productivity that relies more on equipment and less on the people handling it. Therefore, the increase in injuries leading to so many causes for chronic pain in the workplace must now be the subject of change and reflection. For all those who idealize a work environment where whatever their pathology is genetic, neurodegenerative, accidental, or others, can all be included. Increasing the presence and attendance at workplace, even through by using unusual methods, will mean greater productivity. Finally, without establishing any relation between the reasons that lead to the discrimination of people who are suffering from any type of most visible disability or suffering in silence, and any kind of chronic pain or their hypersensitivity and the causes for which they are denied the fundamental right to work, I would like to encourage all disabled people with any degree of disability to fight for their rights for inclusion in employment. Only then will employers understand their desire to work and to have a life where they feel as normal as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Joachim. Our next speaker is from SIP in Belgium, so I'd like to welcome Saskia Dekuman. She's the head of the Disability Management Project, expert research and development at the Department of Benefits in the National Institute for Health and Disability Insurance. Welcome, Saskia.
Good afternoon. The work of SIP Belgium started in 2018, where we launched our first meetings with a startup team. The startup team of SIP Belgium were composed of people who were very aligned to the more international aspect of SIP. and was not so representative to speak already from a steering group of SIP Belgium. And we used our little meetings to come up with a text on which would be the objectives of the more concrete implementation of the SIP principles into the Belgium context. And we decided to focus on working capacity and reintegration. So yesterday, it was a very big moment for SIP Belgium, because we had our first official steering meeting. That means that we invited for yesterday all important stakeholders to be represented in our steering group. We get the support from the medical advisors of the sickness funds, which is a very important partner, because in Belgium the sickness funds are responsible for the recognition in working capacity and to support people going back to work. We got also the support of the occupational physicians, so they are also having their representation in our group. Of course, this is a very important stakeholder, as well as an occupational physician in Belgium is responsible to prepare the return to work when somebody needs adaptations or somebody needs adapted working hours or other tools. We got also a structural support of the employers, so they also sent somebody who will represent the companies. So I don't think I have to say that it's a very important aspect if we can have their support. We also invited, of course, a lot of associations which are related to the medical doctors, and I am the representative of the Belgian government. More or less, the National Institute is a federal administration, so I'm not really the government. Yesterday, like I told you, we had our first meeting and we decided on some aspects, so we will also involve the trade unions. This is one of the aspects we discussed yesterday. We also discussed on some priorities, so it was decided to focus also on prevention on different levels. That means not only focus on people with chronic pain, but just the other way around. How can we avoid that people in the acute phase of pain, that the problem becomes chronic, but also prevention of working capacity, and not also always only focusing on reintegration after people already dropped out. So it was a very first step. We were also very pleased that, in line with what we see in Europe, to of course do everything together about patients with the patients, that we also had a representative of the patient association in our group yesterday. So I hope we get all the important stakeholders around the table. The objective is now to have in 2020 several meetings to prepare some policy recommendations to raise in beginning 2021. And I think we will have a government beginning 2021. That should be the case. So we can start the work. We put a lot of effort to have a representative group of people around the table, and we hope now that we can go a little bit faster, because we have now the right people to work with, and that what we will develop will have a big platform to be effectively implemented in daily practice. Thank you.
Okay, and next up is Elsa Matej, who's the president of the board of the Portuguese League Against Rheumatic Diseases. So I'm delighted to welcome Elsa, who was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis back in 1977. So she's got a long experience of living with arthritis and with chronic pain. And just a quote from Elsa: she believes that supportive employment policies are needed, since work is an essential part of every citizen's life. So welcome, Elsa.
Good afternoon. I will show a little bit about my organization, work on raising awareness on the societal impact of pain around employment and work disability. Well, my disclosures, my organization's disclosures, not myself. Well, first of all, in 2014, following this evidence on the impact of pain in Portugal, it was decided to create patient group dedicated only to pain in our organization. This is how we decided to address the problem. Well, the Portuguese League was established in 1982, and in 2014, this patient group dealing with pain was created. We have other patient groups, but we will focus only now on the pain group. And when this patients group was created, one of his first initiatives was to promote these photo contests on pain. It was Chronicles of Pain, with the aim of raising awareness about pain and also to try and understand a little bit of the public perception around pain, focusing, of course, on one of the major problems, which is the invisibility of pain. And this exhibition, after the contest, went public in 2 different places and was well recognized. Okay. After that, we decided to expand our network. In 2016, the pain patient group was selected, had an abstract selected to be presented at the EULAR Congress. The EULAR Congress is the Congress from the European League Against Rheumatism. And when we presented our work, and mainly this photo contest, we discovered that other patient organizations had several similar campaigns around photography. So we put all those campaigns together in a video to raise awareness around pain and the invisibility of pain. Also, following our involvement in EULAR and the European League Against Rheumatic Diseases, since the Portuguese League is one of the members, after becoming a user-led organization in 2015, when I came into the board, we decided to go back, and we found this paper, this position paper, the EULAR Charter for Work, that was promoting a better policy around work, and we organized our annual event around this topic. And you can see there were several patient organizations by then discussing this paper and what could we do at the policy level to promote employment and better conditions for employment for people with RMDs. And following our involvement in EULAR, we have also been promoting the position paper on health and safety at work that was distinguished, it was disseminated in 2017 by EULAR. And according to the importance of work for people with rheumatic conditions, the EULAR STEAM competition had also this topic of my ideal employer. The Edgar STEAM competition is an award that promotes people with rheumatic conditions to write a short essay about a topic, and the topic was that one. So we can use it also to disseminate and to raise awareness. And of course, in the strategic EULAR objectives for 2023, work and the advocacy and EULAR activities in related advocacy will have increased participation in work by people with RMDs. And therefore, the Portuguese League is also following, of course, all the EULAR activities around work and to promote employment for people with disability, chronic conditions, but mostly in our situation with rheumatic conditions. And following the campaign, this year the EULAR campaign is Time to Work, precisely around work. We were proud to have one of our videos of one of the patients that lives with a rheumatic condition promoting better work conditions and showing mostly how if we have the proper conditions we can live a more productive life and also be happier. And at the bottom of the scene you can see our annual event that was again organized around work this year on World Arthritis Day, October 12th. And this table were discussing the support, what kind of support can we have for workers with disabilities. And you can see we also invited the national coordinator for the program of occupational health. So we hope we were able to raise more awareness on the issue of employment for people with pain and chronic conditions. And of course, we are also involved in SIP and SIP Portugal, as Joaquin presented. We also are a member of the platform, and we signed the joint declaration of the platform. So, for us, the future is to speak with one voice, ensuring a greater awareness on the social impact of pain and the promotion of targeted policies. This is what we aim for. So, thank you.
Okay, and our last speaker in this session is Sarah Copsey. Sarah is a project manager for the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work, EU OSHA. And Sarah's work is mainly focused on the identification and promotion of good practices in the workplace. And in her own words, from her own personal experience, she quotes, "With the right employer attitudes and workplace adjustments combined with support from the public health system, many people suffering in pain can continue to work." So Sarah, welcome this afternoon.
I can't see, right. Well, thank you very much for inviting me today. Which one do I press? Sorry. The green one. Has it gone? Right. I don't have anything to disclose. Right, okay. So I work for the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work, EU OSHA, which is a body of the European Union set up to help improve working conditions by providing information to people involved in health and safety at work. Its management board includes representatives from employer organisations, trade unions, national governments, and the European Commission, and it has a network of national focal points. EU OSHA collects, analyses, and then disseminates research on risks and good practice, which it does via its website, and it promotes the sharing and exchange of experience. It doesn't make legislation or enforce legislation. Where is it? Okay, am I pointing at the wrong thing? Oh, right. EU OSHA runs Healthy Workplaces campaigns to take our messages into workplaces, promoting the idea that good health and safety is good for business. We coordinate these decentralised campaigns while our national focal points organise national activities. And we invite European organisations such as SEEP and EULA to join up as campaign partners. We encourage individual workplaces to join in, making translated resources available to support them. And an awards competition recognises good practices from individual workplaces. Right. Our campaign on the prevention of musculoskeletal disorders, or MSDs, begins in October 2020 and will run for 2 years. It will have 6 main messages: that work-related MSDs are preventable and manageable, that prevention and workplace accommodation measures can be simple and low cost, that early intervention when problems first arise and the rehabilitation of workers with MSDs are possible and necessary, and that staying physically active, even in periods of pain, is important, and that MSDs and work-related stress should be tackled together, given that MSDs can be influenced by stress risks. And finally, that we need to promote good musculoskeletal health among the future generations of workers, e.g. through schools. Working with rheumatic and chronic and painful musculoskeletal conditions will form part of the campaign. Relevant resources we're producing will include information and case studies on practical solutions to support continued working, including simple measures. Resources to support communication between an employee who has a musculoskeletal health problem and their employer. And this is already available in a resource for running workplace discussions on MSD, so that's already on our website. And producing advice on for workplaces on working with rheumatic and musculoskeletal diseases, and that too is already available in the form of an OSH Wiki article on our website. And from this, we're going to make a shorter translated version. And we're producing advice on avoiding prolonged static sitting and standing at work. And this will explore how to get all workers more active at work and how organizations can change working culture to facilitate this. Right. So finally, our key messages for the campaign regarding working with pain and chronic musculoskeletal disorders will be that health and safety measures which make work easier for all the workforce can enable an individual with reduced working capacity to remain in employment, and also that simple measures to support an individual remain in work can often benefit the whole workforce. So in fact, designing workplaces to be as accessible as possible for all workers will benefit everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentations and your statements. Are there any questions here in the audience for the panelists? They're ready to take your questions. If not, I would like to share one comment on which we got from the Swarmworks, and it's worth sharing it. Here it is. SIP Belgium achievements are amazing. Wow. That's really good.
I have a question actually that just occurred to me when I was listening to you, Joachim, and you mentioned about that people experiencing chronic pain in the workplace need to fight for their rights in the workplace. And I'm just wondering what the panels, how can we as a group here today, how can we empower people to fight for their rights in the workplace, given that it's often very hard to even bring up the subject in the workplace. There's obviously some of the posters represent some of the views around the stigma, the supports that are or aren't available. So what's the panel's view on that? How can we empower people to fight for their rights?
Who wants to take it? It's on.
Okay. One of the things that we decided to do, and then maybe this could be a solution or a challenge and of some initiative. In the Portuguese League, what we have done this year is to gather information that can be helpful for the patients, for the people with this kind of problems, because they are already struggling with this kind of problems, and they have stress and they are afraid of losing their jobs. So if we can provide the proper advice on the steps they should follow and how to guide this fight, that shouldn't be a fight, but that is a reality. We need to fight for our rights. Then this could be also a very good solution.
I have another question. I mean, we talk about working with chronic pain and employers should react. I think there's a long wish list you have for the employers. What would be, or what is the top priority for you? Can you prioritize it?
For the employers?
Yeah, for the employers, I mean.
Well, they should promote more flexible conditions for patients with, for people with chronic conditions and pain, flexible conditions and adaptation of the workplace. This is the top priority, and then I think it will be possible to have the workers with better health also, and more included.
Flexibility means adjusted to the situation of the
Yeah.
patient.
Yeah.
Let's say less hours or different time schedule, something like this.
Yeah, different. It must depend on the condition of the person, because
Sure.
we cannot have one fit for all solution.
Sure is it.
Because it was mentioned the not being able to be seated all day, long time sitting, but also, for instance, the air conditioner is also very disturbing for people with chronic pain. And the schedule, the time schedule.
How about equipment? I mean, this is also, I think, an issue in some, or for the employers. I mean, they have to invest in probably expensive equipment, like a table which you can move up and down. I don't know.
But at least in Portugal, there could be some governmental support for these, and maybe more countries have these kind of solutions. But the thing is that neither the employers or the employees know about the solutions that are out there. So campaigns and raising awareness together, it's very good.
What you said is the awareness, and then you can also respond.
If I have to choose a priority, I think it's very important that employers have a policy on how they have to cope with people with any kind of health condition. We see in Belgium that there where employers have a certain vision, have a mission, have a strategy. For example, if people are 2 weeks off work, there is a case manager who is calling the people to have a first conversation. It's not an obligation. Then we see that 2 big companies who are doing that have 95% of the employees who really have a discussion on their going back to work. So we always think that people don't want to discuss because there is stigma, and it's somebody of not the human resource department, it's not somebody who is aligned with the evaluation of the people, it's really a case manager who takes the responsibility to call people after 2 weeks of sickness absence, and then after 2 months, and prepares already going back to work. Another issue is, I think, you need to support employers. Not every employer doesn't want to get people back to work, but they don't see the solutions. They are not educated to see solutions, and sometimes they don't see that a solution for one person on one department with low back pain can be an added value for the rest of the department. So I really believe that we have to support them in daily practice to understand what is the problem. In Belgium, we don't have the system that employers can get money to do adaptations. They are obliged to do reasonable adaptations, so that means a table who goes up and down would be an obligation in Belgium. But we have a system in which people with a working capacity can have an incentive for themselves, which is given to the employer. But that means if you leave your employer, you get the advantage goes with you. So it is something for the employer, but it is really linked to the patient.
And you wanted to add?
Yeah, although I agree with everything that's been said, so I'm not quite sure how much more I've got to say. But 2 points I wanted to make. The measures often can be very simple and easy, and even in my own organisation, we had a person with a back pain problem, and we got a sit-stand desk for her, and we found where you could just get the legs. We didn't have to replace the tabletop, we just replaced the legs, and then gradually after that we've introduced sit-stand desks for everybody who wanted them. So from the first adaptation for the person with a problem, we've now introduced this benefit for the whole workforce. But in my case, a simple thing like a cushion or a change in a mouse, or it can be very, very simple things. So then I agree with what others have said about the issue of employer support, employer knowledge and awareness, because there are employers who don't want to do anything, but there are employers who really would like to do something if they only knew how to start and where to start. So where there are national or regional policies to support that, that's excellent, but not all member states are in that situation. So, and even within a workplace, you might have the employee in general supportive, but individual managers may not know how to approach a conversation, feel nervous about it, how to go about it. So it's raising awareness and information of training people at all levels in the organization, so they can have these kind of conversations.
Raising awareness and, may I add, and offering solutions also.
Yes.
I mean, awareness is one thing, but if you offer a solution directly. I'm happy that I got one question from you, from the audience. Maybe you can display that. And I wanted to ask the same thing. Probably it's the same. Of course, it is sector specific. I mean, if you work in an insurance company as a manager in an office, is different than when you work as a carpenter, for instance. And is it also size specific? Like big companies do more than small companies?
In Belgium, they don't do more. It's not, you can't say that big companies do more in Belgium than the medium or the small, but it's more difficult for the small to medium organizations because you really can believe in return to work, but if you have one people who is your account and he can't go back to work, you have a problem as a CEO.
Yes.
So this is why I think we have to look within sectors how companies can work together, and if you have somebody who can go back to work in your company in an adaptive job and you can exchange people, this I think but it's not flexible. In Belgium it's not so easy. There are not so many flexible systems that there is already exchange of employees between employers. Is it sector specific? Yeah, okay, a manager, we have a lot of burnouts, psychological disorders also in Belgium, which we see more in other sectors than where we have the musculoskeletal diseases. So I don't think you can really say that the problem is more difficult in one sector to another, because if you have to get somebody back to work who already always had a high position and he can't do that high position anymore, I think it's also hard. And when you want to go back, when you want to get somebody who is doing a manual job. So I don't think it's for the individual more or less difficult, depending on the sector or the position somebody has in the organization.
I think it's no doubt very complex.
Yeah.
I
think it's an underestimated problem.
Yeah.
People with high diplomas who can't go back to their former job, and that as Social Security has said, okay, but you can do something else which is beneath your level, which you will have a lower income. It's the same problem than when you want somebody who does hard physical work who goes back to work, because work is linked to your identity.
Of course, and that is also
you
a
choose a
factor.
job content for a reason. And, yeah.
All right. Any other questions from your side? Thank you very much that you took your time as experts and talking about the third pillar of this joint SIP statement. Thank you very much. And here is your applause.